Alright guys, welcome back. It's Cameron from MTG One More Turn. You tend to know me from those MTG Eats, and I just did that Witherbloom upgrade deck. But today we're going to do something a little different. So D&D set is the next standard legal set that's going to come out. And so I looked into, thought some cool, interesting creatures that might get a little more love, some creature types that might get some boosts from either new cards or maybe some reprinted cards, and kind of see how that all fleshes out. If you like it, like, subscribe, all that jazz, but we're going to get right into it. Dragons. I mean, it's D&D. It's Dungeons and Dragons. What are we going to say? So I picked out some dragons that I think could see some price increase just because they're great cards. Either because they're great cards for the dragon deck, or perhaps they could kind of maybe go on their own depending on the kind of dragons we see. I will say, as an aside, all these Elder Dragons in Strixhaven really make me think we're going to see more Elder Dragons, or perhaps something that care about Elder Dragons in the D&D set, because those dragons are just so old. They're just these legendary creatures that have just been around for ages when it comes to dragons. Anyway, so the first dragon we're talking about is a pet favorite of mine when it comes to dragons. It's not the best dragon card to have, but I just think it's so solid, and that's OOZES, Soul of Winter. It's 5, a white and a blue for a legendary creature dragon, and it's a 5/6. That's flying and vigilance, always nice. And whenever a dragon you control attacks, tap target non-land permanent an opponent controls. That permanent doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. So it's a dragon deck. I mean, even 3 dragons attacking, and you get to freeze any 3 things on the opponent's board, whether you're clearing up blockers so that you can easily get through with your dragons, or you're just tapping down things that have some very scary tap effects. Or like a Voltron commander that's coming for you. Either way, tapping a creature is so good. The part that hinders this card is that it's 7 mana. That's pretty high cost, but a lot of dragons are expensive, and dragon decks have like a bajillion ways to make dragons cheaper, including the very last card we'll talk about. So he's only 36 cents right now, but if they do make it a cool, maybe like another Azorius dragon, legendary, I could see this guy going up in price just because he's likely to fit well into that build. The next one we're talking about, it's now about $1, and it's just dragon straight up. It's just how dragons be. It's Crucible of Fire for 3 and a red. It's an enchantment. Dragon creatures you control get +3/+3. That's all there is to it, man. Your dragons are in the air. They're already hard to block. They're already pretty big. I mean, now they all get +3/+3. Yeah, your opponents are probably going down pretty quick. The next one we're going to talk about is $2 now, and that's Lathas, Dragon Queen, for 4 and 2 red. It's a legendary creature dragon. It's a 6/6 that says flying. Whenever another non-token dragon creature enters the battlefield under your control, create a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying. And, as if that wasn't enough, you get 1 and a red dragon creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. So, I mean, she's a builder and a finisher, and she's only $2. She's expensive, she's 6 mana right, but all dragons are. There's really not much you can do about that. But if you play her early, right, you're going to make dragons every time you play the rest of your dragons. If you play her late, you already have a ton of dragons on board, and you now get to pump them with like mass fire breathing, basically. It's just a solid all-around card. It's only red mana, so it's really easy to play in any dragon deck, because most dragon decks are going to have red. And it makes you more dragons if you need to. It's just such a solid card. And it's a dragon, and who doesn't love dragons? So yeah, making those 5/5s, very nice. And it does say non-token, obviously, because otherwise it would just make infinite dragons the first time another dragon entered, because the tokens would see each other. The next one we're talking about is one of those ones you play early that's going to set your deck up to just kick butt and take names, and that is Dragon Tempest. It's 1 and a red for an enchantment. Whenever a creature with flying enters the battlefield under your control, #dragons, it gains haste until end of turn. Perfect, your dragons hit the battlefield and they hit right away. For 2 mana, easy. What more could you ask for? Well, there's more on the card. Whenever a dragon enters the battlefield under your control, it deals X damage to target creature or player, where X is the number of dragons you control. So, honestly, in my opinion, 2 mana, all your dragons have haste, totally worth playing. But now, every time you play a dragon, you get to count your dragons and then deal that much damage to whatever you want. Seems pretty good. seems like an auto include, and it's only $2.69. So if they print some more dragons get hyped again, this card's gonna go up, and that's just the end of the story. It just is. It's just such a great card for dragon decks. There's no reason it wouldn't go up. The next one we're gonna talk about, another one that sits in that $2 range that is a auto include in any dragon deck, and that is Crux of Fate. It's 3 black for a sorcery. Choose one. Destroy all dragons. Well, I don't know if I'd do that in a dragon tribal deck. Or destroy all non-dragons. There it is. Just like Awakening Sun's Avatar for dinosaurs, this is a one-sided board wipe for your dragon deck. You just clear away anything that's an issue and just swing on in with your beautiful flying majestic beasts. And they can't do anything about it. You killed all their blockers. You destroyed them, unless they have changelings, or you're playing a dragon deck, in which case, that's just the kind of war I like to see. And in that case, maybe destroy all dragons is the choice, right? And I gotta kill all the dragons. And you just have to sacrifice some dragons for the cause in fighting other dragons. But yeah, it's only $2. They just reprinted it in the Strixhaven special cards. There's a bit of controversy over that, but ain't nothing but a thing. So yeah, Crux of Fate, great card for a dragon deck. Most of the time, a one-sided board wipe that's just going to clear the way for you to finish the game. If not, set you up to win the next turn. The next one is one of the commanders seen for a dragon deck. In my opinion, the second best. And that is Scion of the Ur-Dragon. It's Wooburg, which means it's white, blue, red, green, and black for a legendary creature dragon avatar. Flying, and pay 2, search your library for a dragon permanent card, put it in the graveyard. Sorry, not on the battlefield. If you do, Scion of the Ur-Dragon becomes a copy of that card until end of turn, then shuffle your library. So 5 mana, you play the Scion of the Ur-Dragon. For 2 mana, you get to make it whatever you want, and it starts as a 4/4, but obviously it becomes copies. This is like the combo-tastic legendary, right? So you just get a bunch of combos for certain dragons. He's in your command zone. He's whatever dragon you need him to be. You play him. My favorite one is to do Niv Mizzet and Curiosity. So you just play him, make sure he's got haste, get Niv Mizzet, give him Curiosity, deal 1 damage or draw 1 card, and suddenly you deal 80 damage, however many cards you had left, to the whole board, and you draw your whole deck. Seems pretty solid. So yeah, this is the combo-tastic one. He's only $3 right now, but if they print some dragons, especially some dragons that combo, some combo-tastic dragons, he's going to go up in price because he makes that deck, basically takes out a lot of the randomness of a commander deck. He just makes it very reliable. You're going to get the dragon you need because your commander is all of them for 7 mana. The next one I want to talk about can also have some combo-tasticness with one of my, kind of another pet combo thing that I just think is cool. But this is Ultvera Hellkite. Now, we definitely had a big old price jump, so our last dragon was $3. Ultvera Hellkite is $12, or around that $12 range. So it's 6, a red and a red for 8 total mana for a 6/6 creature dragon. With flying, whenever a dragon you control attacks, create a 6/6 red dragon creature token with flying. So whenever a dragon attacks, you make a dragon. If you attack with 5 dragons, you make 5 more dragons. You just make so many dragons. This is like Lathas on steroids. Just all the dragons. Which makes sense why he's a little more expensive CMC and real world price. But he has a fun combo that I have in my deck just because I think it's funny. Because it's really hard to get off. First off, you need to have haste. So you need to have your Dragon Tempest out or some other haste inducer. And then you need Breath of Fury, which enchants a creature and then says when you attack, you may sacrifice that creature. If you do, you get an extra combat step and you can equip that to another creature. So all you need is Ultvera Hellkite and an extra dragon. You attack with those 2 dragons, have the Breath of Fury on the other dragon. You make 2 dragons that now have haste. You sacrifice the dragon that had Breath of Fury on it. You get an extra combat step. You attach Breath of Fury to one of the tokens. You then attack with the tokens that have haste. Breath of Fury then sacrifices. You can then attach it to another token. And basically, you have infinite combat steps. All your dragons get to attack. the opponent's going to die eventually. And I haven't heard of it happen. I just think it's cool because I kind of felt like I thought it up myself, but I'm sure someone else has already done it. I just think it's cool. So yeah, Old Vera Hellkite, Haste Enabler, so Dragon Tempest, and then Breath of Fury, and bam, you have infinite combat steps. Now, if combos aren't your style, you're like, man, all that thinking is kind of annoying. I'd rather just bash them in the face really hard with dragons. Then the commander for you, and the commander for me, is the Dragon. For 4 in Wooburg, so 4 white, blue, black, red, green, 9 mana for a legendary creature dragon avatar. He is a 10/10. He has Eminence, so as long as the Dragon is in the command zone, where he will generally be, or on the battlefield, where we also love him to be, other dragon spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Well, dragons are super expensive. I mean, think OOZES is 7 mana, Lathas was 6 mana, Scion's Wooburg, so it doesn't do anything, but Old Vera Hellkite is 8 mana. Now those guys are all getting them out 1 turn earlier. That can change a game completely, especially compared or added with other cost reducers. But there's more. Whenever 1 or more dragons you control attack, as long as obviously the Dragon has to be on the battlefield for this. This isn't part of the Eminence ability. Dragons you control attack. Draw that many cards. Nice. Then you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. So not only does he make them cheaper, when he's on the battlefield and dragons attack, you get to play a free dragon. I mean, you could play other permanents, but why would you when you can play free dragons? Unless you want to sneak out that Old Vera Hellkite combo, or play Crucible of Fire and just be like, oh, all these dragons attacking, by the way, they're all getting +3/+3, and just out of nowhere. Ah, good stuff. And it's free, right? You don't have to pay for it, so you just put it on the battlefield. It's not going to trigger the attacks, so if you have OOZES Soul of Winter that says whenever a dragon you control attacks, if you put it on the battlefield with the Dragon's ability, you're not going to be able to tap non-land permanents. But outside of that, it's just so nice. It's going to draw you cards. Even just drawing you 2 or 3 cards is super nice, and then getting to put a free permanent on the battlefield, and you're playing dragons, you're going to have a lot of permanents. Now this one, like I said, definitely the most expensive. $37, so around $40 for this guy. And if they print some more really good dragons, which they're bound to in a D&D set, or Dungeons and Dragons, they're gonna print some good dragons. This guy's gonna go up in price. So while that may seem expensive now, he's for sure gonna be more expensive later. So this is a good pickup, especially if you're seeing that D&D set man, I'm gonna want to make a dragon deck. So the last creature type we're gonna talk about is Ooze, because who doesn't love a gelatinous cube, right? I mean, and they're so common in D&D. You hear about them all the time. It's just a fun little thing. So why not see some Ooze in the D&D set? It just makes sense. So what do we have that even is going to help our Ooze friends? Well, we already have a few cards that care about Oozes, so it's not outside the realms of support for creature types. And it's a good creature type. I think it's cool. So getting a fun Ooze commander, because right now the ones we have are cool, but we definitely could have a better one. So getting a fun Ooze commander is definitely going to pop these prices up, or just a good Ooze lord. And it doesn't help that even the most expensive one only sits around $4 of the ones I picked. So they're cheap, easy pickups for an Ooze commander deck. And if you kind of build the deck and then you're like, cool, I just gotta wait for that Ooze commander, I promise you you're gonna get a good back on your return. So the first one to talk about is one of those commander choices, and that's Slurk, All Ingesting. So it's 5 and a green for a legendary creature Ooze. He's a 0/0. But he does enter the battlefield with 5 +1/+1 counters on him. Whenever Slurk or another creature you control dies, if it had +1/+1 counters on it, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control that has a +1/+1 counter on it. And it has partners. That was kind of confusing, right? So basically, if you have counters on all your stuff, and one thing dies, everything else gets more counters. So it's just all ingesting, right? Just constantly getting more counters off their things dying, just constantly eating each other. And that's a reoccurring theme, right? Is that Oozes just kind of eat and grow and eat and grow. He's only 9 cents in TCG player market because I think it's that mana value, right? 6 mana is just a lot. So I feel like we could do better. We could have a different ooze that really gets that job done. But until then, he does make a good one, especially because he has partners. So you can combine him with another partner commander that helps out the ooze tribe. But let's say you don't care about counters, you just want a ton of oozes. Another fun card to toss in there is Gelatinous Genesis. For X and X and a green, it's a sorcery that creates XX green ooze creature tokens. So just to make it really simple, if you pay 1 for an X, right, so it's XX green, so you'll pay 3 mana, 1, 1, and then green, you'll make 1, 1, 1 green ooze creature token. If you pay 2 mana into the X, it'll be 5 mana, and you'll make 2 2/2s. If you put 3 into it, it'll become 7, you make 3 3/3s. So the goal is to just dump a heck ton of mana into this and make like infinite ooze creature tokens. But even pumping like 21 mana into this, so you pay 10, so you get 10 10/10s. That's not out of the realms for green to do by any stretch. And having 10 10/10s is kind of game ending, especially if they can attack. And this card's only 27 cents. It's a nice, cheap budget kind of way to finish the game with a deck that has a ton of mana, very mana producing. But if they come out with a really solid ooze commander or something of that, or another solid ooze lord, I can see it going up in price. The next one that is for sure an ooze lord, and it's only 24 cents, is Biowaste Blob. For 2, a green and a green, oozes you control get +1/+1. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control a commander, create a token that's a copy of Biowaste Blob. So it starts at a 0/0, right? So it starts as a 4 mana 1/1. But if you make it all the way down to your upkeep, it then copies itself if you control your commander. So now there's 2 2/2s. They give each other +1/+1. It makes another copy, they're now all 3/3s. But then if you have an ooze deck, right? So there's other oozes besides these guys, those guys are getting +3/+3. And it's a token that's a copy of it, right? So you make 1, so you got 2, right? Well, on next turn you're going to have 4, because it's going to double itself each time. This is also cool in that new Quandrix commander deck, right? That doubles how much tokens you make. I think he'd be a pretty fun ooze commander just because of the oozes' capacity to make tokens of themselves. And he's only 24 cents. He's great in an ooze commander or generally in like a tokeny deck. I just think he's a solid card. He's only 24 cents, and if they make it, in my opinion, a better ooze commander that's really going to ignite some imaginations for people, he's going to go up in price. The next one is an enchantment. It's Gutter Grime for 4 and a green. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, put a slime counter on Gutter Grime. Then put a green ooze creature token onto the battlefield with this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of slime counters on Gutter Grime. Cool. I mean, you think like Slurk, right, cares about things dying. They tend to care about stuff dying. Like oozes care about counters, they care about tokens, and they care about stuff dying because they're eating it. That's what oozes do. And so, when your non-token creatures are dying, so they're like, man, we got to take care of your board because you have all these oozes and they're very scared, but you have Gutter Grime out. They board wipe. All those non-token oozes you have, the ones that have counters and stuff, are going to trigger, and then bam, you now have a bunch more oozes. They're all tokens now, but it says whenever a non-token creature control dies, so it's going to trigger for each non-token creature if there's a board wipe. Right? Board wipe the table, and everyone else is going to probably get left with nothing. Well, you have a ton of oozes that just get to say hello next turn, and it's only 33 cents. Honestly, doing this research has made me want to make an ooze deck. It just sounds fun. So the next one we're going to talk about is Mitotic Slime. It's 4 and a green as well, so again, they're pretty high, I've noticed, kind of high in that CMC cost. So it's 5 mana. It's a creature ooze that starts as a 4/4. When it dies, you create 2 2/2 green ooze creature tokens that have, when this creature dies, create 2 1/1 green creature ooze tokens. So basically, you start a 5 mana 4/4, and then If you kill it all the way to where they no longer have, like, when this creature dies, you get 4 1/1s. So like I said, the deck is all about, like, creating tokens and stuff. So having a thing that cares about making more tokens would be great for this. But also the counters work just as well. But this is cool, right? It's only 87 cents. And for 5 mana, you get over time, what, 8 powers worth? No, 12 powers worth. Because you get the 4/4, and then the 2 2/2s that are also 4 powers, so that's 8 power total. And then when they die, you get 4 1/1s, which is another 4 power. So it's 5 mana for over the course of the Mitotic Slime's, like, life cycle. You get 12 power on the board. Seems pretty good, especially if you're putting counters on them with the Slurk, or you have the Bio-Waste Blob that's upping their power a ton if it stays around for even a couple of turns. And this card's only 87 cents. Like I said, these oozes are cheap, but the deck just sounds hilarious. It sounds like such fun. And for sure, if they make, oozes are cool. They're going to have, I feel like, an ooze commander. And these guys are going to go up in price because that ooze commander is probably going to be pretty cool. The next one is, you know him, you love him, he's in standard right now, Scavenging Ooze. It's 1 and a green for a creature ooze. You can pay a green to exile target creature card from a graveyard. Target card from a graveyard. If it was a creature card, put a +1/+1 counter on Scavenging Ooze, and you gain 1 life. So it's graveyard hate. And I know some people, Dad, don't like it when people do graveyard hate because they love their graveyard synergies, and they're like, not my stuff. But graveyard synergies are really prevalent in Commander as a whole. And those decks kind of get out of hand if you have no way to deal with their graveyard. So having cards, even like Scavenging Ooze, where it's spot removal, can sometimes be almost better than, like, full exiling the graveyard. So it's cheap, it's easy, just 1 green mana to just exile a creature card, exile any card from a graveyard, and hey, maybe it's a creature and you get a +1/+1 counter, which you've seen oozes care about, and you get to gain life. It's only 49 cents, it's a 2/2, so it's not terrible stats. It's just a solid card that if you're making an ooze deck, you should put it in there because it fits tribe, it fits theme, and it gets a little graveyard hate if you're playing a deck that just cares about its graveyard a little too much. It's only 49 cents. You should pick it up. The next one, it's Biogenic Ooze. For 3, a green and a green, creature ooze. When it enters the battlefield, create a 2/2 green ooze creature token. At the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on each ooze you control. So I think, honestly, that alone is solid. So it's a 2/2, so it's a 5 mana 2/2 that makes another 2/2. So 5 mana for 4 power total, and at your end step, it's 6 mana. Because it's going to put a 1/1 counter on him and his ooze friend. If it just did that, every turn it would get that extra counter, that'd be great. But it has a mana sink too. You can pay 1, a green, and a green to create a 2/2 green ooze creature token. So not only can you make your oozes bigger, but you can make more oozes. This is another card that literally does all of what oozes do. It makes counters, and it makes tokens. It is just the perfect conglomerate of what it does. Similar to Scavenging Ooze. But yeah, Biogenic Ooze just does everything it needs to do, and it does it well. Which makes sense why it's almost $4. And like I said, if an Ooze Commander comes out, it's going to go up in price. Pick it up now. It's a good card. Oozes are, I hope I've convinced you that Oozes are really interesting, and they have some really fun tribal cards that would make the deck just fun to play. The final one, which is probably, I want to say, the best Ooze Commander. At the moment, I really hope we get a better one. It's Experiment Crage. So it's 2, and then green, blue, for a legendary creature, Ooze Mutant. And it has Experiment Crage, has all the activated abilities of each other creature with a +1/+1 counter on it. And you can tap to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Well, we just talked about Biogenic Ooze and talked about Scavenging Ooze that both have activated abilities and put counters on themselves. So Experiment Crage is going to get all the activated abilities of all your oozes, because let's be honest, it's not hard to put counters on all your oozes, especially in green and with what oozes just do. So he's a 4/6, and he can tap, like I said, in. For some reason you can't get counters on something, but you really want counters on it. Tap, Experiment Cross, you put a counter on it. It doesn't hurt that you can also, if you need to, put it on something like your opponent's stuff, or another creature that is has a really solid activated ability. You can put a counter on it, and now Experiment Cross can do that too. And he's only $4. He cares about the +1/+1 counters. He can put +1 counters, so maybe something, let's say you have Slurk out, right? And they're like, man, let's kill this ooze before it gets a counter on it and can buff all your stuff. Well, you can tap Cross it. Actually, it does have a +1/+1 counter on it. And bam, you get all those counters from Slurk. So, yeah, I think this is cool. I think oozes are really interesting. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a ooze commander out of this D&D set. I really have high hopes for it. There's a lot of tribes that could use some help, like kobolds, druids, and oozes, and tribes that always love support. I think dinos could use a little more support, and dragons will always take more support. Dragons, I don't think needs the support, but it's Dungeons and Dragons. Like, if they don't put dragons in this set, then I feel like they just did it wrong. I think out of these, probably my favorite ones are the druids and the oozes, just because I think they're the most underrated, and I really hope they get some support for the set. And if I convince you that they're really funny, or that they're interesting, or that they have some cool synergies, pick the cards up now, because when the set comes out, or more importantly, when the spoilers start and people see all these druids, these oozes, these dinos, maybe these kobolds, obviously these dragons, the cards that care about those creature types are gonna go up in price. But that's all I got. Do you guys have any creature types you think would be obvious that I forgot about? Or do you disagree with any of my choices? As always, like and subscribe. I do some Twitch stuff under Cameronius. I think that's all I got. You guys have a super califragilistic expialidocious day. See you in the next video.